Okay, so I just want to show you my review answers here so you can check yours, and then we can talk next time, hopefully tomorrow, what questions you have, or you can email me or send me a remind message if you really have a question that you want answered sooner than the next time I'll see you. But hopefully these first ones, you're just plugging in your numbers, hopefully using your calculator correctly. Remember, when you square a number, it is positive. So I'm just going to kind of highlight my answers here, and then we can talk about it later. 16 and 18, I kind of probably showed way more work than you did, but you should have got an answer of 1 on that. And then starting at 18, types of numbers. So if you forget real, rational, irrational, whole, natural, that might be something worth writing down, that chart. But repeating decimals are rational because you can write a repeating decimal as a fraction. So if it's a fraction or repeating decimal, it's rational. And then real numbers. All of these are real numbers except for complex numbers, right? Which we didn't do this in chapter 1. Square root of 4, they tried to trick you because some people see a square root and automatically think irrational. But irrational numbers are square roots that don't simplify, like the square root of 3 or the square root of 5. But this is just 2. So 2 is all of them. They are natural, whole, integer, rational, real. Remember that your number can't be both rational and irrational. So 5 is the most you're ever going to have. And then 20 is also a fraction, and fractions are not integers. They're not whole numbers. They're not natural numbers, so it's just rational and real. If you go back and look at your notes, if you still have them, I gave you like this little diagram, or you could look up online a diagram. What else did we do in chapter 1? Absolute value equations. Remember, when you set up an absolute value equation, you have to set up 2 equations because the absolute value could equal the positive number, like 4, or it could equal the negative number, negative 4. So you get 2 answers. But you always want to check your answer, so make sure that you look at those, okay? So like number 36, it can't equal an absolute value can't equal a negative number, so remember that sometimes you get no solution. And then 37, this one you have to set up 2 equations. One of them is 2b minus 9, but then on this side I have to change it to negative 2b plus 9. And so change both of those, you get 2 answers, but you have to check your answers again, right? And so 14 works. When I plug it back in, I got 19 equals 19. But when I plugged 4/3 in there, I got a positive number equals a negative number. And so again, maybe write an example down on this or write directions about checking your answers. And then inequalities, remember when you solve an inequality, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip your sign. And then the other thing is about the notation. You either have to write inequalities as set or interval notation. And so you can kind of look at my work here. Let me know if you disagree. 100%, sometimes I can make mistakes. But I got negative 2/9. Remember, fractions are our friends. So I'd rather have that than negative 0.2 repeating. And I got x is less than or equal to negative 2/9 because I divided by a negative. So this is set notation, or interval notation would be everything from negative infinity to negative 2/9. Because there's a line underneath it, it's a bracket. And I think that asked you to graph that as well. 42, same thing. I just worked it out, distributed, got my p's on one side. I also ended up dividing by a negative number, so I flipped my sign. So I got p is greater than negative 2. So greater than means I would start at negative 2, not included, and I would go to infinity. And then you were also supposed to work on unit 2 through 45. I don't know why I did 35 after that, but I stopped here. So today you're going to finish unit 2 and do some other stuff. But domain and range, is it a function? Is it one-to-one? Remember, we talked about every function that we deal with is on 2, so you kind of don't have to stress about that much. But remember that if it's a function, all the x's have to be different. If it's a one-to-one function, all the x's have to be different and all the y's have to be different. So number 7 is a function. It is both one-to-one and on 2. Number 8 is also a function because all the x's are different, but it is not in one-to-one because the y's repeat, but it is an on-2 function. Okay? 11 and 12 is just function notation. Remember, when you see f of x or f of 4, it just means plug in that number 4, 4. It's just another way of kind of getting an ordered pair. And then number 12, I made a little mistake there, but I think you should get 11 as your answer. And then average rate of change is another word for slope. And so make sure that you know that if I ask you for the rate of change or the average rate of change, it's just the slope. And so this one, they gave you a chart and they asked you to find the average rate of change from week 2 to week 5. So y is on the top, x is on the bottom, rise over run. And I subtracted them and I got 54 over 3, which is 18. And think about the units on this. This is the y's were DVDs and the x's was weeks. And so we could say that the average rate of change was 18 DVDs per week. And so anytime you see something like that, remember that that's a slope, rate of change. Number 32, I think they gave you a graph and asked you to find the rate of change. I just found 2 points where they crossed and I did the slope. So I got 2 as the answer. And number 41 asked you to write an equation given a problem. And I think it was like writing a puppy. A puppy cost $250, and then the cost of food was an average of $32 per week. So that's your slope, right? Y equals mx plus b. So the rate of what you're spending each week goes in for the slope, and then the amount that you start with is $250, so that's your y-intercept. And then that's all you had to do for today. I want you to keep working on this, so I want you to work on Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 5 through 55 for tomorrow, and we'll go over that. If for some reason we don't have school due to weather, please check Google Classroom. I know it's not required because it's not a home learning day, but your final is upcoming, and so the good news for us is our final isn't until later in the week, so hopefully I'll see you before then if you don't get online to check. But if you do have your stuff at home, please keep working and preparing for that final exam that we're going to have later in the week.